Before my grandmother closed her eyes for the last time, she begged my father to bury her separately from my grandfather. My father nodded eagerly, but after she passed, he still buried them together. When I tried to stop him, he slapped me so hard I stumbled. The day after the joint burial, all the livestock at home died overnight. The priest we hired, Aaron, turned pale. "A vengeful spirit has risen," he said. "First it kills animals, then it takes blood relatives. Your family's about to have a coffin lid thrown open." My grandmother was dying. She had lain in bed for 2 days without food or water, yet she still refused to close her eyes or take her last breath. The house was filled with relatives who had come for the funeral. They stood at the doorway, smoking and loudly discussing when she would finally die. Their voices shifted from excitement to irritation, making no effort to lower their volume. It was all intentional. My father squatted at the door, chain-smoking, his face dark. After finishing the entire pack, as if finally making up his mind, he walked up to my grandmother and said, "Mom, fine, I promise you." The moment my father said that, a flicker appeared in my grandmother's dull eyes. She called out to him, "Don't lie to me, son." Her voice, silent for so long, rasped like bellows, each word punctuated by wheezing gasps. My father clenched his teeth, as if wanting to say something but swallowing it back. "We've lived like this our whole lives. I don't know why you're making trouble now, even as you're about to go." After speaking, he stormed out, unable to contain his anger. My grandmother lay there, still wheezing. I held the burial clothes and gently touched her arm, which was nothing but skin and bone. I couldn't stop my tears. "Grandma, I don't want you to go. In this house, no one loved me except Grandma. Once she was gone, I'd be a child no one wanted." She didn't speak. Those last 2 sentences had drained all her strength. She simply looked at me, exhaled one long breath, and closed her eyes. Grandma was gone. My mother came in, gave her a shove to make sure she was really dead, then spoke with barely concealed delight. "The relatives have been waiting 2 days. If we wait any longer, they'll hold a grudge. Hurry up and dress her, the coffin's been ready for days." Wiping my tears, I dressed my grandmother, while my mother nagged beside me. Grandma was thin, but her body bore many scars left from beatings by my grandfather when she was young. Yet no one but me seemed to notice or care. My mother impatiently shoved me aside. "Go tell your father to light the firecrackers. Then ask when the burial will be tonight. You know the rules for a joyous passing. There must be fireworks. It's already past 6. Even if we skip the vigil, won't the funeral home close soon?" She glanced at me, then, as if remembering something, scolded in a cold voice. "Don't end up like your grandma. She was old enough, but never learned to make things easier for her children. Even now, she refuses to be buried together. It's so troublesome. She just didn't know how to enjoy her blessings." I panicked. "But Grandma didn't want to be buried together. She said it herself. She told us to cremate her and scatter the ashes. Dad even promised her." My mother said, "Your dad only said that to help her go in peace." As she spoke, she had already finished dressing my grandmother. Seeing me still standing there, her face darkened. "What? You think you're grown now? My words don't mean anything anymore?" Normally, that meant I was about to get beaten. But this time I wasn't afraid. I just wanted to fulfill Grandma's last wish. Tugging at her sleeve, I cautiously said, "Mom, before Grandma got sick, she gave you all her jewelry. You promised her." My mother abruptly covered my mouth, glancing around to make sure no one heard, then sighed with relief. "If your aunt hears you say that, the house will turn upside down. Are you trying to ruin this family? Besides, who can talk sense into your father? Listen, your grandma's jewelry was meant to pay for your tuition. If you stir things up now, forget about school." I raised my voice. "I don't care, I won't go to school. I can survive picking up trash if I have to." My mother's tone turned icy. "We're not like your aunt's family. We can't afford to support 3 kids in school. If you've made up your mind, go tell your father yourself." "Fine!" I gritted my teeth, rebelling for the first time. Dad promised Grandma. A promise is a promise. Fueled by anger, I found my father smoking outside. When he saw me, he even smiled. "What brings you out? Is it your grandma?" I choked up. Grandma's gone. Mom says we're burying her with Grandpa today. But Dad, before she passed, you promised. I hadn't finished when my father swung his arm and slapped me hard. Damn it, you're just like your grandmother. You learn a few words and think you're something special. The slap rang in my ears, but soon my father's curses reached me through a buzzing haze. They were married for decades, through thick and thin. If she's not buried with your grandpa, who else would she be buried with? It's all your fault, filling your grandma's head with nonsense. If I'd known you'd turn out like this, I never should have raised you. No, that's not true. I tried to argue, but my head spun as soon as I opened my mouth. You promised, Grandma. Mom promised too. Grandma gave you... Before I could finish, my mother slapped me even harder. I fell to the ground, but she didn't stop. She climbed on top of me, hitting wildly. What kind of cursed child are you? You've always been trouble. Now that your grandma's dead, you still want to cause more drama. You won't even let your grandma rest in peace. I curled up, shielding my head. The shouting around me grew louder, then softer. When I came to, I was kneeling by Grandma's bed, while my mother's yelling still echoed from outside. Ungrateful brat. Disrespectful little demon, relatives chimed in. Let her kneel there and reflect. She's still young. She'll learn. Reflect? What was there to reflect on? I clutched Grandma's hand, sobbing my heart out, not because no one defended me, but because I knew I couldn't stop the adults. Grandma, why did you trust this house full of wolves and jackals? Well, I believed that bad roots could grow good shoots. Because of all this, they locked me in the house during the burial. Night had fallen. I watched them carry Grandma out. In the flickering lights, I saw her eyes wide open. Her eyes weren't they supposed to be closed? I should have felt scared. But instead, a strange joy welled up inside me. I knelt and prayed softly toward Grandma's direction. Grandma, if ghosts really exist, come back and take revenge for yourself. The moon hung high, half hidden by clouds drifting in from nowhere. I fell asleep while praying. At dawn, my mother's shouting woke me up. Damn it, some cursed dog's gotten into our chicken coop. My legs were numb from kneeling all night. I crawled to the window. My mother stood at the door, stomping her feet, holding a few dead chickens. Whose damn dog did this? All my chickens ruined! Today's the last day of the funeral, and plenty of relatives are here early to help. Seeing my mother stomping angrily, everyone gathered around to ask what happened. Weren't the chickens fine? How'd they get ruined? Someone said, I bet you bought sick chickens. I'm telling you, even for a joyful funeral, you can be this cheap and bring sick chickens here. Sick chickens, my ass? My mother snapped, shaking the lifeless chicken in her hand, her face flushed red. Look at these legs, pure free range. And check the neck, those marks are from some dog chewing on them. As my mother spoke, she showed off the chicken. People gathered to take a closer look, still arguing, when my father's curses suddenly rang out from the back room. God damn it, who poisoned my Buddy? Buddy was the dog my father had raised since it was a pup. Honestly, my father cared more about that dog than he ever did about me. My room only had a window facing the front yard, so I couldn't see what was happening out back. I could only hear my father's voice growing louder and louder, while a few neighbors went to check. Soon, my father's yelling came to an abrupt stop. The entire back area fell eerily silent, making me uneasy. Moments later, I saw my father emerge, his face pale, clutching a knife as he hurried toward my mother. A group of relatives trailed nervously behind him. What the hell happened? Someone asked. My mother jumped, startled. My father didn't answer, snatched the chicken from her hands, and hacked it a few times with the knife. Dead silence followed again. As suspicion grew, someone finally spoke in a trembling voice. There's no blood. No blood at all. No blood? What did that even mean? It felt serious. Soon, the village elder arrived with a few others. After some discussion, they brought in someone else, Aaron from the neighboring village. Aaron arrived in a rush, his graying hair tied up messily. Entering the yard, he started tapping the ground with his ever-present cane. My parents followed him, their faces drenched in cold sweat. The cane paused at my door for a moment, then continued inside, finally stopping at the room where Grandma had passed. Did you do something wrong to the old woman? Aaron asked. No one answered. My mother hid behind my father, stammering, "Not really." "You're lying," I shouted through the window. "You promised Grandma not to bury her with Grandpa. You lied to her." "You damn brat! Always running your mouth!" My mother snapped as soon as she heard me. "This is grown-up business. You know nothing. You're liars!" I shouted. "Enough," Aaron cut her off coldly. "We'll know the truth when we check the grave." "The grave? What? You think the dead will crawl out on their own?" My mother forced a laugh, glancing around for support, but no one spoke. "Well then, who's going to check?" Silence. All eyes turned to my father and uncle. Since this involved Grandma, it was clear the two sons had to go. My uncle pulled his wife back a step. "Big brother, I told you the funeral was your responsibility. You took the money, now you handle the mess." My mother wanted to argue, but my father tugged at her sleeve and she went quiet. They'd collected a good amount in funeral offerings, and if my uncle got greedy, they'd lose half of it. My mother didn't dare go herself, nor let my brother or sister go. Her gaze finally landed on me. "Let Jennifer go," she said. "She was closest to her grandma. If anything happens, well, Grandma wouldn't hurt her." No one asked for my opinion. Everyone simply agreed. The door opened, and I was led to Aaron. Aaron pulled 2 bells and a red rope from his pocket and handed them to me. "Go to your grandma's grave," he instructed. "If you see nothing, good. But if you see her, tie this bell to her wrist and bind her feet with this red rope." The crowd gasped. Aaron had basically admitted outright who was behind this. It was Grandma. The dead returning, that meant she was a zombie. I didn't want to go, but under my mother's sharp glare, I set off. The village path was damp with moisture. The bells in my hand felt dead, making no sound at all. Following the footprints from last night, I reached my grandfather's grave. The large mound stood silently in the darkness, like Grandma, who had been silent her whole life. The front of the grave appeared intact. I wasn't sure whether to feel relieved or heartbroken. The person Grandma spent her life fleeing from had still trapped her in the end. Kneeling, I bowed 4 times, crying, "Grandma, I failed you. Even after your death, they still bully you. Someday, when I'm strong enough, I'll fulfill your wish." After bowing, I was about to leave when the silent bell suddenly jingled ding ding. Ding ding growing, faster and more urgent, as if warning me. I stood up, confused, and saw a patch of green behind the grave, the color of Grandma's burial clothes from last night. The bell rang even louder as I dumbly walked around the mound. There, behind it, was a large hole, and beside it, Grandma lay quietly. Though it had only been one night, her nails had grown long. I wasn't afraid, only heartbroken. Her fingernails were caked with blood-stained dirt. I couldn't imagine how she had clawed her way out. As I stepped closer, I confirmed I hadn't imagined it yesterday. Grandma's eyes were wide open, full of hatred. "Grandma," I held her tightly, my tears falling into her eyes. I tried to close them for her, but no matter how many times I did, her eyes stayed wide, round, and open. The bells rang even louder. It felt like they were urging me to do what Aaron had instructed, but how could I? She was my grandma. "Grandma, you protected me when I was little. Now it's my turn to protect you. Do whatever you need to do." I let go of her hand, kissed her face, and covered her with grass. Then I grabbed a stone and smashed the bell until it was silent. As for the red rope, Aaron said to tie her up with it. But why would I bind Grandma? Those people were the real villains. The red rope was made of some tough material. I couldn't tear or bite through it. After hesitating, I crawled into the grave through the large hole. The tunnel led directly to the coffin. It grew darker the deeper I went, but luckily there were no bugs or snakes. Feeling around, I tied the red rope around the scattered bones. After finishing, I hurried back the way I came. By the time I returned, the yard was filled with people, all gasping at the sight of me covered in mud. Aaron saw their reactions and figured out what had happened. "You did as I instructed?" "Yes," I nodded firmly. Whether I had or not, both tasks were done. Now it was just a matter of waiting. "Waiting for what?" Someone in the crowd asked. "Are you stupid?" Another replied. "Waiting for her to show up tonight. obviously. Jesus. Will it be a person or a ghost? The crowd buzzed with nervous chatter before slowly dispersing. A few cowardly ones took their families and left. My second uncle and aunt didn't stay long either. Using vacation as an excuse, they drove off, leaving only a few brave ones who squatted nearby, planning to extend their leave and livestream in hopes of going viral. Hearing this, my mother, who had been panicking, suddenly looked thoughtful. Aaron, on the other hand, remained calm. He occasionally used his cane to dig small holes around the yard, burying things inside. I secretly memorized each spot, planning to dig them up later. And so we waited until night fell. I couldn't tell whether Aaron was doing it on purpose or not. The whole day, every time I drifted even slightly out of Aaron's sight, he'd find an excuse to keep me nearby. As night approached and I still hadn't found a chance to dig anything up, I grew anxious. But my mother and the others were even more anxious. They stood by my bedroom window, holding up their phones ready to film this unnatural event. My father wasn't around. Aaron had said that once the creature finished with the livestock, it would turn to humans. So my father went out to buy more chickens and ducks. He went late, and most live animals were already sold out. After pulling some strings, he barely managed to buy a few dozen. "Dump them all in the yard," Aaron ordered. My father didn't complain once. He didn't even stop for water, just kept unloading the animals from the truck. I quickly ran over to help. As I untied the ropes from the chickens and ducks, I secretly dug up the things Aaron had buried at noon. There was a few small bags of red sand-like powder, probably cinnabar. Without overthinking it, I flushed everything down the toilet. After hours of work, everything was finally ready. Aaron had me sit with him at the entrance to the main hall. The others stayed in my room, saying, "The old lady loved Jennifer the most while she was alive. She wouldn't hurt her." Aaron said nothing, just glanced at me a few more times. Even though I knew he couldn't see anything, my heart still pounded with unease. "Turn off all the lights and wait quietly," Aaron instructed again. A few people grumbled, but soon, except for the dim glow of phone screens, all other lights vanished. Only the bright moon remained, lighting up the entire yard like daylight. Time ticked by, and the noises dwindled. I crouched beside Aaron's chair, nodding off, struggling to stay awake. I didn't know how long had passed before Aaron tapped me lightly with his cane. I jerked awake, realizing just how eerily silent the night had become. No insects, no frogs, absolute silence. I instinctively held my breath and followed Aaron's gaze. That's when I saw it, a human-shaped figure standing on the wall. Its face was indistinguishable, but the red rope tied around its feet was glaringly obvious. How could this be? I froze. Wasn't that rope tied to my grandfather's bones? Before I could think further, I felt its gaze fall on me. I instinctively looked away and clung tightly to Aaron's chair. A rustling sound came from my room. They must have noticed the figure too. The noise inside briefly distracted the creature. It stood there motionless, seemingly torn between going after the people inside or the chickens and ducks in the yard. My heart pounded so fast it felt like it would burst. Suddenly, Aaron stood up. He pulled a knife from his pocket, grabbed a chicken from the yard, slit its throat, and flung it toward the figure. He was blind, yet somehow did all this with precision. The smell of blood was faint, but to that creature, it was like a feast. Without hesitation, it leapt down, caught the chicken mid-air, and bit into it hungrily. 1 chicken, 2 chickens, 3 chickens. 1 duck, 2 ducks, 3 ducks. In the darkness, the sounds of bones snapping and blood being sucked grew horrifyingly loud. But that wasn't the scariest part. The worst was that even while devouring, its eyes remained fixed on my bedroom window. Its gaze was full of greed and desire. The slaughter continued until dawn. Only after the sun was high did the people inside dare to come out. Their faces were pale, dark circles heavy under their eyes. Those who bragged about their bravery fled without saying a word. My mother's legs trembled as she mumbled, "Why won't it show up on camera?" "It's supernatural," Aaron replied casually. "Of course it won't show." Then he changed the subject. "This one's pretty strong, and it's locked onto your family." "Locked onto us? What does that mean?" My mother instinctively screamed, then quickly covered her mouth. When she spoke again, she was nearly in tears. "We're doomed. I told you we should have just burned everything. But no, you wanted to save money. Now the whole family's cursed." My father looked embarrassed. "I said save money, but you didn't object. Besides, you took all my mom's jewelry, the ones she said were for Jennifer's tuition, and melted them down for your brother. If I were Mom, I wouldn't forgive you either." My mother's face turned beet red. If it weren't just family here, she would have been ashamed enough to jump into the river. Both of them were guilty. After exchanging glances, they turned to Aaron for help. Aaron remained calm and answered every question. "Have you heard of a ghost fiend?" he asked. "It's a rural term, different from zombies that take time to form. A ghost fiend is born instantly from overwhelming resentment. There's no real way to deal with these. Fire doesn't work. Light doesn't work. All the usual methods are useless." Seeing my parents' faces pale, Aaron continued slowly. "When a ghost fiend appears, it first kills livestock, then blood relatives. This one plans to rip the coffin lid right off." "Aaron, Master Aaron, you have to save us!" My parents begged desperately. Of course they wanted to be saved. Aaron sighed. "I share a bit of blood with your family. If this ghost fiend fully forms, I'll die too." My mother's face brightened at that, but Aaron's next words wiped away any relief. "Jennifer, I have one question. Don't lie to a blind old man. Did you actually tie the bell to your grandma's wrist yesterday? And did you bind her feet with the red rope?" My heart pounded as my parents glared at me viciously. I licked my lips and answered firmly, "Yes, I did." "I mean, did you follow my instructions exactly? You know whether the answer is yes or no." I swallowed and rasped out, "Yes." "You're lying!" My mother lunged at me and slapped me hard. "You little bastard! You're lying! I raised you! I know every trick you pull! You're lying!" "Where did you hide those things? You're trying to get us killed, aren't you?" "I didn't." I clenched my teeth and refused to give in. I had only one thought: protect Grandma. Everyone else wanted to hurt her, my family, and even Aaron. Aaron watched coldly as my mother beat me half to death before stopping her with his cane. "Enough! She'll have to go back and do it again anyway." My mother finally let go, seeming slightly more energetic after venting. "Later, you'll go again. Take your father's phone. We'll watch you do it." "No," my father objected. "What if she calls the cops or runs away?" "Then what? This girl's too cunning. I won't be at ease unless we watch her ourselves. Doesn't the house have that data plan with live surveillance? We'll use that." They discussed it right in front of me, completely ignoring my opinion. Once they finished, Aaron pulled out another set of bells and red rope from his bag. I took them without hesitation, not because I was afraid, but because I wanted to see if that figure's red rope was really on Grandma's legs. If I refused, they'd never let me out. With the surveillance camera in one hand and the bells in the other, I followed the same path back to the grave. Circling around to the back of the mound, I heard Aaron's voice through the surveillance. I ignored it and tossed everything I was holding aside. Now that I was out, I wasn't taking any more orders. Ignoring the curses coming through the feed, I walked to where I had covered the grass yesterday. A whole day and night had passed. The grass covering Grandma had turned dry and yellow. As I pulled it away, the first thing I saw was still her wide open eyes, then the dried blood at the corner of her mouth. In just a few dozen hours, her nails had grown even longer, and her teeth had begun to protrude. Could that creature from last night really have been Grandma? I brushed all the grass aside and looked at her ankles completely bare. Last night's thing wasn't Grandma. I glanced at the large hole before me, my hair standing on end. I had a feeling that thing must have been hiding in the hole. That thing, it might have been Grandpa. Maybe what I tied up that day weren't bones, but Grandpa's dried up corpse. The bell in my arm suddenly rang on its own, sending chills down my spine. Though it was broad daylight, I broke out in a cold sweat. Without thinking further, I hoisted Grandma onto my back and ran home. If it was Grandpa, I wouldn't stand a chance, and neither would Grandma. My only option was Aaron. When I arrived, only Aaron was home. He didn't seem surprised that I brought Grandma back. Seeing my panic, he even reminded me to hide her under the bed. "Your parents sent your brother and sister back to the county," Aaron said with a smirk. "You young folks call this being a dumbass." I watched Aaron cautiously, unsure how to react. Don't be so serious. Seeing me ignore him only made him more amused. Since I'm in a good mood, ask me anything, and I'll answer. Unable to resist, I bit my lip and asked, "Do you know who that thing was last night?" "Who else could it be besides your damn grandpa?" the old blind man retorted. "Don't tell me you thought it was your grandma." I turned my head away, too embarrassed to admit I really had thought so. Aaron, blind as he was, ignored my small reaction. I continued, "You hold a grudge against my grandpa?" "You could say that," Aaron replied. "Oh." I didn't press any further. Whatever the reason, as long as Aaron wouldn't hurt Grandma, that was enough for me. "Oh?" Aaron turned toward me, almost disbelieving. "That's it? You don't want to ask anything else?" I shook my head, then remembered he couldn't see and said aloud, "No, but if you really want to talk, I'll listen." Aaron raised his voice. "Really not curious, huh? You little schemer. Just like your grandma when she was little." He said the last part so softly, I wasn't sure I heard it right. Aaron fell silent and stared toward the doorway. "Wait. After tonight, it'll all be over." My parents returned at 6 in the evening, exactly the same time they'd left for the funeral, with 2 bags of live animals and some steamed buns. The buns were for Aaron, none for me. Aaron rubbed the buns but didn't share. After he finished eating, he finally revealed the true identity of last night's creature to my parents. "Impossible," my father argued. He'd rather believe it was Grandma than admit it was Grandpa. "Master Aaron, Jennifer's grandpa has been dead for years. How could he become a ghost fiend?" Aaron bit into a bun. "Why not? Your father had no lingering regrets when he died?" "Of course he did." My father suddenly deflated. I knew he remembered. The night Grandpa died, he kept shouting, "I haven't lived enough." My father cut me off, still refusing to believe. "Who says people die satisfied?" "Master Aaron, I'm telling you, it was definitely Jennifer's grandma last night. She hated us." "Hated you for what? For breaking your promise? For turning a blind eye to her years of suffering?" Aaron interrupted coldly. Everyone in the village had seen Grandma's hardships. My father brushed it off awkwardly. "Who doesn't go through stuff? It's been decades. Why start trouble now? Those other educated youths lived out their lives fine. Besides, I was just a kid. How could I meddle in their affairs? Compared to others, she barely got hit." I clenched my fists. Aaron chuckled. "Of course! How could a man empathize with a woman? To you, feeding her, giving her a roof and a bed was already plenty. If you don't believe me, let's watch again tonight. That thing's been feasting on blood for 2 days. Tonight, it won't resist human flesh. When it sinks its teeth into your neck, you'll see clearly enough." "No need to see that clearly." My father chuckled nervously. "Life and death are separate paths. Whatever it is, it shouldn't exist." "Yeah? Well, when it's biting your neck, you can shout your little proverb all you want." After being smacked down twice, my father finally shut up. He finally noticed Aaron's growing disdain. But no matter how hard he thought, he couldn't figure out why. So, unsure of what to do, he simply stayed quiet, something he used to lecture me about. Now, he was following his own advice. Only after my father quieted did Aaron snort and continue. "That thing's likely your grandpa. It didn't appear earlier because its resentment wasn't strong enough. You bought a well-built coffin so it couldn't escape. But once you opened it to bury Jennifer's grandma, you accidentally let it loose. He hadn't lived enough, then spent 3 years trapped in there. No wonder he's dangerous now." As night deepened, my parents turned on every light in the house. "What if it fears the light?" "He has no eyeballs. What light would he fear?" I glanced at Aaron, who seemed especially irritable tonight. My father once again didn't argue quite the contrast from the man who slapped me days ago. "So what should we do tonight? Should we get more chickens and ducks?" he asked politely. "No need. Tonight, you'll be the bait." My father lunged forward. "Why me? Can it be my wife?" My mother's face instantly went pale. "Why me? That's your father." "Exactly, that's your father," they shouted together. Aaron ignored my mother and explained, "A ghost fiend feeds on blood relatives. Your wife may call him father, but she shares no blood with him." Then what about Jennifer? My father named me, unsurprisingly. Not her. She's a girl. Her blood won't attract a ghost fiend like yours. If your youngest son were here, we could have swapped him in. My father looked regretful. Should have never sent him away. That's your own son. So what? As long as I stay alive, I can always have more sons. My father muttered, then sidled up to Aaron. Master Aaron, you must save me. If you save me, I'll treat you like my own father and take care of you till the end of your days. Aaron, a childless welfare recipient, chuckled. You've got some sense. Fine, I'll help. Night had fallen completely. No one knew when the creature would arrive. Slowly, Aaron pulled out bags of red sand and handed them to my father. In a moment, I'll tap spots with my cane. Wherever I tap, you bury this. At your service, Godfather. Aaron chuckled. Flexible, aren't you? It took over 2 hours to finish all the tapping and burying. My father was exhausted, but still tended to Aaron serving tea, fetching water, practically groveling. Aaron was very pleased. After a few sips of water, he finally seated my father in the center of the yard. I arranged the formation just now. As long as you sit quietly, without moving or speaking, it won't find you. If you can last until dawn, I'll handle it. But remember, no sound, no movement. If you slip, I can't save you. My father nodded like mad, nearly swearing an oath to the heavens. What about me? My mother, seeing my father all set, hurried up to Aaron. I'm not blood, related to his father. He shouldn't hurt me, right? Aaron replied, Can't say for sure. If he can't find his son, he might settle for a daughter-in-law. My mother panicked and begged Aaron to save her. If you go in too, your daughter will be in danger. She's not my only daughter, my mother blurted. Master Aaron, no. Godfather, you have to save me too. After thinking for a moment, Aaron handed her a handful of the red sand and had her sit in the middle with my father. And you? Do you want to sit in the middle too? Aaron asked me. I'll go back to my room, I refused. Ignoring the relief on my parents' faces, I turned and went inside. Grandma was still in there. Aaron chuckled and stuffed the remaining sand back into his bag. Then stay safe in your room. At 2 a.m., the familiar figure appeared on the wall again. Red rope was still tied around its ankles, but this time it looked slightly bulkier than before. It jumped down, grabbed one of the live animals, and started devouring it. The creature stood less than a meter from my father. Watching it get so close, my father involuntarily flinched. My mother quickly pinched him. Aaron had said, no talking, no movement. The two of them were now like grasshoppers tied to the same string. My father didn't make a sound from fear, but the pinch made him gasp sharply. That single gasp made the creature freeze. It lifted its head and sniffed. Under the light, its face was fully exposed. It was Grandpa, just a thinner version. Not smelling the person it wanted, its face twisted with impatience and malice. A sharp, cold voice rang out exactly like Grandpa's voice before he died. I couldn't help but shiver. It released the animal, extended its hands, and bounced around the yard searching. Each time it nearly touched my father, but narrowly missed. After several close calls, both my parents were drenched in sweat. Time ticked by. Growing frustrated, the creature stood silently for a moment, then suddenly started tossing the animals around the yard. With so many flying, one or two inevitably hit my parents. At first they endured, but as the panicked chickens and ducks scratched them, my mother couldn't help but cry out in pain. The creature froze. Under the light, it actually grinned. My mother clung to my father, too terrified to breathe. The creature crept closer and closer. Just before it could touch her, my mother glanced at me. In her eyes was a mixture of reluctance and a desperate will to live. In the next instant, she hurled something at my window, a rock. The brick hit the glass with a sharp crack. The creature stopped, sniffed again, and slowly turned its head toward me. It found me. I gripped the cane Aaron had given me, forcing myself to stay calm. I had only one chance. The creature drew closer and my breathing slowed. Just as it was about to grab me, a furious roar came from behind. A figure lunged at the creature. It was Grandma. I froze for a moment, then rushed to the window. Grandma was no match for it. She clung to the creature wildly, biting with her newly grown teeth. Before I could react, Aaron called out her name. Grandma didn't respond, fighting purely on instinct. Aaron stumbled a few steps before turning to shout at me. Remembering the plan, I grabbed the cane and ran out. Even in the chaos, my parents stayed frozen in place, following Aaron's instructions. Don't mind them, just stab that bastard with the cane. Once it's injured, it'll need a blood relative's blood to heal. If it hurts someone, divine punishment will follow. This cane's made of lightning-struck wood. It only has one choice. Everything went according to plan except for Grandma's sudden appearance. The struggle had also overturned some of the buried objects, rendering the formation useless. The creature charged toward my father, pinned to the ground with a stench filling the air. My father finally realized the creature was his father. Dad, it's me. The creature didn't stop. Lowering its head, it aimed for his neck. My mother no longer cared about being tied to my father's fate. She scrambled toward me, but seeing Grandma beside me, turned and ran toward Aaron. Master Aaron, no! Father, help! Save me! Her face was filled with terror and panic. Aaron ignored her. Once I gave the signal, he took the cane and quickly entered the yard. Jennifer, Barry! This time, it wasn't to block, it was to trap. We trapped the creature and my father in the center of the yard, waiting for judgment. In the dark, I couldn't see where my father was injured, but the smell of blood grew stronger. Dawn was approaching. Hurry! Faster, we can't let it escape. As I filled the last pit, the creature raised its head. It looked even fatter more accurately. Its flesh had grown fuller. Now it looked almost exactly like Grandpa when he was alive. My mother had vanished somewhere, otherwise we'd hear her screaming again. I haven't lived enough. The same words again. But this time, his gaze landed on me. Don't be afraid. Aaron stood in front of me. Soon it'll be the shift between yin and yang. The ghost wardens will patrol then. This thing's full of dark energy. It'll surely draw their attention. And if they don't notice? I asked nervously, glancing toward Grandma. What I really wanted to ask was, would Grandma be taken too? Even if they miss him, once it's light, I have ways to handle him. Aaron's voice was icy. Watching his back, it felt like everything was unfolding just as he'd planned. In the yard, the creature kept pacing and bouncing around. Once it realized it hadn't moved from the same spot, it stopped, tilting its head as if thinking. A wave of indescribable fear spread. The source of that fear soon revealed itself. The creature grabbed one of my father's legs and flung him out. Damn it! Aaron's voice finally carried some panic. It's got a brain! Before I could process what Aaron meant, the creature had used my father to break free of the formation. Run! Instinctively, I grabbed Grandma and tried to flee. Her hand was cold and stiff. Her long nails were thick like dull blades, yet she didn't resist. She let me drag her as we ran through the yard. The creature didn't chase Aaron. Its eyes were locked on me. Jennifer, hold on! Just a little longer till dawn! Aaron shouted from the doorway, clutching his cane. Don't bring your grandma along, he yelled. She's too old to run fast. Even at a time like this, he still thought of that. I held my breath and moved my feet even quicker. Without realizing it, dawn was finally breaking. Thick fog blanketed the yard. The sound of chains echoed through the air. Grandma suddenly stopped, and so did Grandpa. He abandoned the chase and leapt toward the wall. Just as he was about to escape, a hand reached out from the mist and grabbed the dangling red rope. Though it seemed like a light touch, Grandpa was yanked violently to the ground. No, I haven't lived enough. He struggled, but was slowly dragged into the fog. When the mist cleared, only a pile of scattered bones remained. It was over. I stood there, dazed. Grandpa was gone. But what about Grandma? I turned to look at her. She stood behind me, her green jacket tattered. Her hands were still stiff and cold, but her eyes at some point had closed. This old lady just wouldn't close her eyes. Maybe she had unfinished wishes, the relatives had once said. Their words echoed in my ears. Grandma, did you finally close your eyes because you saw Grandpa punished, or because you knew I was safe? When everything settled, I brought Grandma to the funeral home. Aaron paid for it. Holding her urn, he took me to the back mountain. The wind was strong at the top. Slowly, he scattered her ashes. Your grandma spent her life bound by the times, traditions, judgment, and her children. Let her be free, at last. I knelt beside him silently. I never asked about what happened between Aaron and Grandma, but I knew it must have been full of tragedy and regret. As we descended, Aaron handed me a bank book. "This is my life savings for a dowry. Your grandma's dowry was melted down by your mom. You won't get it back. Use this to live on." His voice sounded like a mix of laughter and tears. "Consider it a gift from both of us." I accepted the bank book and bowed to him 3 times. "You raised me when I was little. I'll care for you when you're old. You paid for my schooling. I'll see you through your final days." I no longer called him Grandpa or Aaron, but Uncle Aaron. Uncle Aaron refused to leave the village. After I started school, he moved to the back mountain. My mother and I lived like strangers, neither caring nor inquiring about the other. It wasn't until summer that I heard updates from some close friends. After we left, neighbors came to our house and reported the chaos to the police. My father was sent to the hospital. They tried contacting my mother, but she refused to answer. The villagers raised money to get him treated and dumped him at my mother's family home. Forced by public opinion, my mother reluctantly took him back and cared for him, though I heard beatings and curses were common. My father once tried to seek help, but his beloved children only advised him to endure it. Grandma went through the same thing. For the family's sake, just let Mom vent. You're disabled, she feeds you, that's already kind. Back then, Grandma handled everything inside and out, braving cold and hunger while still getting beaten. People should be grateful for what they have. You've weathered decades together. If you separate now, others will laugh at us. The boomerang struck him instead. My father sat speechless. With her children's support, my mother went from guilty to brazen. Later, she even openly brought home her lover. My father couldn't resist, nor did he dare die. He'd scream at home daily, each time ending in fights with my mother. Over time, he became as lifeless as Grandma once was, a defeated man. Like dough, kneaded flat. When I returned to transfer my household registration, I heard my mother boast to others about her experience. I didn't interrupt, just quietly watched my father in the corner, paralyzed from the waist down. Flies buzzed around him. Some landed on his body, but he didn't move like a silent statue. Yet I didn't miss the venomous darkness in his eyes. The next time I heard about them was after I graduated and returned to visit Uncle Aaron. They said my father finally snapped. While my mother and her lover were together, he crawled over with a knife and killed them both. When the villagers found them, 3 bodies lay still in the house. The walls were covered with the word Mom. I thought he must have regretted it. Uncle Aaron had grown old. After Grandma's death, his spirit seemed to wither. But that day, he felt energized and, leaning on his cane, led me up the mountain once more. The mountain was now full of flowers of all kinds. Some bloomed vibrantly, others drooped. Your grandma loved Jennifer the most, Uncle Aaron said as he settled down, smiling softly. Jennifer, I'm leaving soon. Don't be sad. I bit my lip, holding back tears. I was useless, a blind man who couldn't save your grandma. I guarded her for so many years. I've accepted it. As for your grandpa, Uncle, don't say it. I know. I cut him off. I know everything. I know all of this was your plan, your revenge. My father was your bait, and so was I. But Uncle Aaron had given them chances. If my father had kept his promise to Grandma, none of this would have happened. This wasn't Aaron's sin. It wasn't his fault. Uncle Aaron paused, then chuckled softly. I forgot you take after your grandma, a smart child. He handed me the cane. Go on, head down the mountain. I want to talk to your grandma. Come back tomorrow. I didn't want to leave. I knew once I left, he'd be like Grandma, and I'd be a child without love again. But I left anyway. Uncle Aaron had waited for Grandma his whole life. He deserved these final moments with her. I sat at the mountain's base through the night. When I returned at dawn, Uncle Aaron lay peacefully among the flowers, eyes closed. As he wished, I scattered his ashes across the mountain. The wind carried them away like a farewell, yet filled with longing. If there's another life, if we meet again, I hope we all get what we wished for.